Spiritual awakening will heal all of your traumas. But there is one big stumbling block that's going to make it challenging to achieve that spiritual awakening. And that is forgiveness. Forgiveness is at the core of what the problem is. So let's just summarize the problem quickly here. You are a spiritual being having a physical experience. You are born into this world connected to your spirit. You are aware of your physical body, your energy body, your spiritual nature. You are connected to your guides. You're connected to all other spirits. You interact with the world from a place of beauty and of love and appreciation. You do not see yourself as separate from everyone else. You are in a state of unity consciousness. All is well in the world. You exude love. You observe life from the place of love. This is the state that you are born in. Your very, very first untouched, uncorrupted physical experience is like that. And then things happen to you. Things that cause you to feel fear. Things that cause you to feel pain. Things that cause you to feel separate and othered from others. Things that cause you to feel lonely, isolated, unwanted, unworthy, judged. Things that cause you to feel grief. All of these things cause you to feel separateness. Separateness is an illusion that occurs at the level of your consciousness. The truth is that you are spirit. You are not a spirit. You are spirit. You are one with spirit, with all spirit. You are a consciousness that is everywhere and everything. You're not necessarily meant to constantly be aware of this in this life, but you are not meant to embrace the illusion that everyone is separate from you, everyone is against you, and everyone is someone else that you need to protect yourself from. This duality, it comes at you in obvious ways. I am afraid of that person, but it also comes at you in subtle ways. I must compete with that person. I am not as worthy as that person. That person and I are going up for the same job. That person is my rival. That person is out to get me. I do not understand that person. We cannot get along. In subtler and subtler and subtler ways, the lie that there are people out there that are opposed to you starts to consume your life. And then you become frustrated. You get angry at them in traffic, at the checkout line. You start to judge them. You start to think, why are they this way? Why are they that way? Then you start to judge society. What's wrong with people? What's wrong with the government? What's wrong with the economy? These are all ways in which the subtle concept of duality has crept into your consciousness. And you begin to see the world as me versus that. I don't like that. That is not being right to me. I want to change that. It comes in millions of ways, but it is a trauma response from the fact that at a young age, something happened to you that caused you to build a strong wall around yourself and to separate yourself from the rest of life. You're not only separating yourself in terms of your identification, you're separating yourself in terms of flow. So energy cannot flow freely between the abundance that exists in this universe and the space of needing abundance inside of your being. Love cannot flow freely from people who really, really, really want to love you. Relationships, friendships, you just simply cannot receive love. Anywhere that you go, any job that you have, you will recreate the same tensions that you had at the last place because you're not allowing a different flavor of relationship to come to you. I could go on and on and on, but the illusion of separation is blocking the oneness of existence. When you interact with life, with animals, or with people, you get the best response when you interact with them from the heart space, from the space of God consciousness where you and I dwell. If you meet me in the heart space, we cannot argue. If you meet me in the heart space, I can get you to understand anything. Or I can understand you. There will be no disagreement or misunderstanding in the heart space. If both of us have a problem and it seems as though only one of us can get quote unquote our way, if we meet each other in the heart space, we will be able to find a solution that benefits both of us. Because the heart space only has one thing. You do not see an ocean fighting. You do not see an ocean declaring that one wave has won and the other wave has lost. That is, if that were to occur one day, it would be the ocean version of mental illness. So, duality is an illusion that occurs at the consciousness level. And it is the root of many problems. In fact, if you really, really, really dig into it, it is the root of all problems. The illusion of duality. That's why there's an entire field of spirituality called non-duality. Self-inquiry towards the objective of realizing non-duality. So, this duality is caused when seemingly there was a conflict between what you are as a evolving human, a young human, saw as yourself and what you saw as someone else. And I'm not trying to belittle this. This could have been quite serious. It could have been an attack. It could have been sexual assault, rape, abuse, physical abuse, violence. It could have been truly, truly disturbing. And I'm not saying that those things were right. And I'm not saying that you need to be like, oh, what else? It's all good. You don't need to brush it aside. But you need to recognize that you have closed yourself off since that moment. You've closed off your heart. You've closed off your faith. You've closed off your love. You've closed off your receptivity. And it is causing ripple effects in your life. And at some point you have to decide that I don't want this anymore. And the only way to do that is to end the illusion of duality. There are many ways to do that. You can contemplate it intellectually, you can pray for it, you can meditate on it. There's all kinds of things. But one of the core things that will help you a lot is forgiveness. Forgiveness is not something that you do to others. Forgiveness is something you do for yourself. You do it in order to release your heart from the bondage that you have put your heart in. Forgiveness is how you stop hating the world. How you say, I am done seeing the world as me and others. Forgiveness is most powerfully when you forgive God. When you forgive life for doing that thing to you. And forgiveness will free you from the separation. And it will allow you to receive the love that is being beamed in your direction. The sun is beaming its rays of warmth toward you, and you open an umbrella and are shading yourself. You're holding the umbrella, facing that sun and saying, no, I don't want your warmth to touch me. And that's what you're doing with the love of the Creator, of divine consciousness, of unity consciousness. The one thing in this entire universe is trying to send you love, is trying to send you healing, and you won't do it because you haven't forgiven yet. Obviously, forgiving is much harder than just simply saying, I forgive. Forgiveness is an evolution in your consciousness. So as you start to understand the way that life works, the fact that pain causes pain, hurt people. People who have been sexually assaulted often, but not always, oftentimes sexually assault others, especially childhood abuses. People who were yelled at when they were young, yell at you when you were young. When you understand that in your own self, you understand it in others. When you understand that fear creates a trauma response in you and that you can only see the world through that lens, and that you will start to yell at someone who hasn't yelled at you yet, then you start to understand that others do that also. When you carry pain on the surface of your being, and anyone who touches it, you yell at them and you strike at them. When you learn to recognize that in yourself, you then learn to recognize it in someone else. If you you're out in traffic or at Walmart somewhere, and somebody loses it and starts yelling, you don't get lost in their pain. They're already lost in their pain. You recognize the way it works. You recognize unconsciousness. You recognize pain bodies, pain patterns, root thought patterns, core beliefs. And you recognize unconsciousness, and you recognize that this person is not aware of what is happening to them. You recognize that the pain inside of them is hungry to feed on the pain in someone else and is trying to create pain in others. When you start to understand these things, it becomes easy to first forgive it in yourself. If somebody steps on your pain body and you react, you quickly get out of that unconscious state, and then you quickly start to tell yourself, oh, gee, I did that thing again, didn't I? And when you can forgive yourself, then you can forgive others. You can start to forgive the stranger in traffic. But can you start to forgive a colleague? Maybe a friend? Can you forgive your teacher for giving you the sort of oppressive education that they were given? Can you take it further and forgive your parents? Your parents gave you the only type of love that they knew of. And sometimes that meant that the only form of love they gave you was making sure you didn't die. They met you with the level of emotional awareness that they were aware of. When you understand that everyone is on a journey of consciousness and that everyone is battling energetic chains and energetic ties and energetic demons, then it becomes much easier to forgive them. Sometimes the forgiveness comes with boundaries. It often does. Sometimes it comes with strong boundaries, and you say, listen, I may no longer resent you and I may no longer actively be angry at you, but I draw a strong border here and I declare that we cannot have a relationship that's closer than this. That's also fine. Do whatever you need to do in order to achieve the forgiveness. Sometimes the forgiveness is very, very difficult, and you literally have to pray for it and ask for grace to step in and spontaneously create this forgiveness in your heart. That's also fine. Sometimes the forgiveness comes very, very slowly. I once took 16 years to forgive someone. And the forgiveness came in phases. Whatever is necessary. You need to understand that your consciousness and your spiritual awakening is the most important thing in your life. And that means that getting to your heart space, dwelling in your heart space, attaining God consciousness, Christ consciousness, and living from that level of perception is the most important thing in your life, if it is. And you need to ask yourself, is my anger more important to me than my desire to love? Is my desire to be right and to point out to everyone that I am right more important to me than it is to just simply dissolve that identity entirely? Am I more identified with the terrible thing that happened to me in my past than I am with this new wonderful thing that is happening to me now? Be gentle on yourself. I'm not being sarcastic or facetious when I say that maybe you're just not there. It is a journey, but constantly maintain awareness of that journey. Constantly observe the lack of forgiveness. When someone's name is mentioned and your blood pressure goes up, recognize that and say, I see that I still identify with that pain. I see that that person still reminds me of anger. Just recognize it. If that's all you can do for now, just recognize it. And then in time, the fire won't be there quite so much. And then in time, the venom won't be there quite so much. And then you will be observing the memory of pain. You will be observing the memory of being angry at that person for the pain. Until one day you realize, I no longer identify myself as the one who was hurt. And I no longer identify you as the one who caused my hurt. And I no longer need to tell that story. I no longer get fed in an energetic way from telling that story. It is a slow journey. Allow the journey to take place at whatever pace and be gentle on yourself. You do not have to forgive before you're ready, but if you need help being ready, if you want help with the tough ones, ask your spirit. Remember, this is a world of free will, and you get to decide what you want to do when. Your spirit will help you to do anything, but you have to decide that you want to do it, and you have to ask for help to do it. In your prayers, in your meditations, before you go to bed, on your vision boards, whatever, ask your spirit and say, I am ready to tackle this one. I am ready. Or make me ready. Help me to be ready. And your spirit will come in and help you. The important thing is to forgive, not because the other person deserves it. In fact, in the vast majority of cases, they do not deserve it. You will almost never get an apology for the things that happen. In many cases, you won't even get an acknowledgement. They will not spontaneously say, you're right, I was wrong. You have to want to be free of it. At the most basic level, you have to want to be free of the stress, of the pain, of the emotional trauma, and of the acid in your being that is forming diseases because of this. At another level, you have to want to unify with God enough. You have to want to raise your consciousness enough that you're willing to say, I do not understand the God in that person, but I understand that God is in that person somehow. And perhaps when we die, when we leave this physical world and we return to being spirit beings, I will see that spirit and be like, hey, I get it. I understand why you played that role in my life, perhaps. I do not understand it right now as a physical being, but I understand that that person, before they were born, was pure spirit, and after they die will be pure spirit. And that pure spirit is no different than I am. And if I want to know my pure spirit, I have to be willing to let go of the idea that that person is separate from me and against me by any means necessary. Simply contemplating this intellectually will get you to the point where you are emotionally able to do it. And if you need the extra help, ask your spirit for it. Put it on the list of goals that you want to achieve. Your vision boards and your manifestations don't just have to be, I want this house or I want this job. It can also be, I want this level of consciousness. I want this level of freedom. I want this level of healing. And the beautiful thing about it is that when you forgive, when you let go of that attachment, the help comes to your entire family. It is a hatred that you don't have to pass down to your children. It is a hatred that you no longer will find in your previous generations, in your parents and grandparents. Even if they are not doing the work and they are not at the level of capacity where they can do forgiveness or change, you have done it for them. That energy, that demon no longer lives in your household, in your bloodline, because of the work that you have done. So at its core, trauma is the process by which you cease to be aware of the fact that you're a spirit. And on the journey from being a traumatized being to being the embodiment of God, the biggest bridge that you have to cross is forgiveness. It is crucially important. It is quite difficult, but it is absolutely doable. Keep with it, and most importantly, continue to observe it. Observe forgiveness, observe lack of forgiveness, observe partial forgiveness. The position of the observer is very powerful and will transmute any trapped energy, any trapped emotion, any trapped illness back into energy, back into consciousness, back into love. Trust that process. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day, everyone.